So I will say that my PhD is that I'm working on it's not in economics. So a lot of this question, it's like, well, what's the future going to be? And economists, they like to do a bunch of data digging. I'm not an expert in that area. We'll touch on that kind of stuff from what I've read, but I'm doing a PhD in theology, which makes me study the Bible and makes me ask, is the word AI anywhere in here? Um, and it is. It is in Judges. Yeah. Do you know it? Yeah, it's the name of a city. So sometimes I say, does anybody want to know what the Bible says about AI? You turn to it, you get something to read it, and it says, oh, and Joshua burned AI. And that's all we need to know about AI. So no, we have much more to learn than just that. Just to, we're going to talk about, does God want AI to do my work? That's not just I was talking to someone before, that's not just like to get you to come here. I really do want to answer that question honestly today. And to kind of start us off in what we're thinking about, there's an economist who did a study, and they were kind of predicting the future, so to speak. And so right now you have 32% of people in the workforce work in office work jobs. And they expect, and this is a high confidence that they had, that in 100 years, it will drop to only 15% of people working in those jobs. So 1.2 billion people will be out of work, according to this high confidence estimate. So you think about, if in this room, maybe there's 30 people, 35 people here signed up, so 32%, we're talking about like 10 to 15 of you out of a job, right? Pretty dramatic in terms of that expectation over 100 years. And so how do we respond? So there's extremes here. One extreme of this issue is we should start a war against the humans who build these products. Or we could just start a war against the machinery itself. This is already starting to happen. Data centers are being attacked in a similar way to the Luddites. The Luddites were a movement out of the city of Nottingham, actually. They started there. And they said, let's, all this technology, it's too much, too quick. It's destroying the family and the home. So they started to burn factories. So that's an option. Maybe an option in the middle, so to speak, is faithful presence. It's like, okay, we're not going to fight against it, but we're not going to accelerate it either. We're going to be faithful to wherever we are in life. Or we could, go into the other side. Effective accelerationists. They're a movement, E/ACC. You'll see it in Twitter bios and things like that for people into tech who really think we have so many problems in our world, and AI is going to help solve them. So we need to accelerate the development of AI because it will save us. It will be like a savior to us. And then on the, let's just not just accelerate, let's just worship our AI overlords. So that's the extremes here. Just so you know, there are Christians who are in camp 2 and in camp 4. I would be in camp 3. But we do need to reckon with this reality, as I said, of this kind of prediction of 10 to 15 of us just losing our jobs, right? And by the way, I did actually make a typo in this because this is not what's going to happen in the future. This has already happened. So as of year 1800, 32% of people worked in agriculture jobs. That is what happened. There's even more than that before then. It used to be at 70%, but in year 1800, 32% of people were farmers or worked in agriculture in some way. And in 100 years, after 100 years passed, only 15% of them were farmers in terms of a population. So 280 million at that time, because there was less people in the world, had to find a new job. And today, you speed up to where we are now, only 1.2% of the workforce works in agriculture. There's so many machines. If you talk to a farmer, you're talking to a technologist today. They do not do their job without using GPS. They just don't. It's ridiculous. You need to have high yield. And so I bring this up because a lot of us are very scared about the future of AI. And I just want you to know that there's, especially in the last 250 years, been a lot of technological change. We are not the first to go through a technological change. This has happened over the years at different times in different places. Maybe AI is new. Oh, and by the way, I will send out these slides to anybody who reaches out to me after. This is just a chart to show what I said in words on the last slide. So you can see here in 1400, 1500, 70% of people working in agriculture, down to 1.2% now. Is it so wrong that the job given to Adam is now done by a machine? Or are we okay with that? Are we okay with Adam, when he was in the garden, thinking about how am I going to, build a garden? Let me make a shovel. Was it wrong for Adam to make a shovel in order to be a little bit more efficient at digging and tilling the soil? I would say no. I'm pretty okay with him using a shovel. And then you okay, what about a bigger shovel? Okay, what about a thing that moves and it spins with the wheels and then it does the digging for you? You just get more and more complex, and that's where we are now, right? So there's precedent for technological change, and there's precedent for technology doing work for you, right? So I just want to start with that kind of basis of what we're going to be talking about today. To give us a bit of structure, though, there are these three parts to the question. Does God want AI? So what is AI? We're going to talk about AI in more detail now. What even is it? As well as work. What's God's perspective of work? What does the Bible say about work? Because there is a potential future that some people say where we won't have to work. How do Christians respond to that kind of premise? And then really trying to get to the heart of God. What does God want? So let's go into AI. There's kind of 4 sections within this. I like to be organized, otherwise I'm all over the place. So we're going to talk about what AI is like, what AI isn't. Then I will finally give a definition for AI. And then we'll talk a little bit about what has tech done to work and what could it do. Some of these predictions from economists. So what is AI like? So I try to just summarize this to try to give us some metaphors to think about artificial intelligence. It is like a digital assistant, okay? It is a helpful tool for navigating the internet. How many of you, by a show of hands, have used something like ChatGPT or Claude or something like that? Yeah, pretty much all of us here. We've seen the use of it. If we took some time right now, we could all list some use cases and surprise one another by how helpful it might have been. I worked at an AI company from 2016 to 2020. Now that AI company was predictive AI. We were all about helping organizations predict how good an employee would be at that organization. It was nothing like the AI that we all think of today, which is generative AI. So you might think of these 2 main categories. Predictive AI, like a weather app. What will the weather be tomorrow? That's an AI question now. Or something like, what's the next song that you are going to like? Spotify has a predictive AI algorithm to give you a suggestion. Oh, you're going to like this. That's predictive AI. It's not generating something new. But when you get that next song and you look up the artist and you find out that that artist isn't real, and you find out that that artist is actually an AI artist, and this is happening already today. It came up on my feed when I was listening to it. This is a real thing. That's generative AI. So those are the 2 main categories, and sometimes you hear people shorten down the AI conversation. We're talking about Gen AI, which makes sense. But it is helpful. It can bring together a bunch of the internet, a bunch of what has been made digital, and deliver it to you. However, it's also like a steroid. A steroid gives you stronger muscles, helps you do more things in terms of lifting weights, but it has its side effects. All technology has side effects. Even Adam, if he made a shovel, even that shovel would have side effects on him, right? You get different things happening to your hands when you're using a piece of wood over and over rather than the dirt itself. You might get calluses. You might move your back in different ways. And something is always happening to you. There's always a side effect of any technology. And it's also like a fake friend. One of the major things that ChatGPT did is they had this idea, well, there's something in the tech world called GPTs, which I won't get into the details of. But they're like, let's add chat to it. Let's make it feel like talking to a human. And by doing that, they really did emphasize this companionship in the very nature of the product. And so whenever you're using generative AI tools such as Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT, it is always like a fake friend to you. So if there are three main metaphors for AI, it would be these three. It's like a digital assistant. It's helpful in navigating the digital world. It's like a steroid. It has some side effects. And we'll get into that in a second. And it's also like a fake friend because it fakes that relational aspect. Now, what are the side effects? So if I were to give a talk just on this, I would spend about 15 to 20 minutes just talking through each of these 8 areas. I'm not going to do that. We're not going to go through all the detail of it. But just to summarize, there are known side effects to using these apps. One of them is that it presents truth as true when they have no idea if it's true or not. It's just connecting the dots, and when it connects the dots, which is very helpful and makes it very useful, it also hallucinates, is what it's called. Another word for this is lying, but let's use hallucination, because then there's no moral connotation to it, right? It's just, a hallucination. So that's one potential flaw that you're probably aware of. Sycophancy is another one. This is a huge problem. Basically, if you go to it, you're like, I have a new business idea. I'm going to collect sticks in playgrounds around the neighborhood and create a website where I sell the sticks. And it'll be like, what a genius idea. It just loves to compliment you. It's trained around this type of behavior. It just, people like it. People like being told that you're great, you have a great idea. And so it's going to do that. Yeah, it sometimes will push back for sure, but it's trained to be, sycophantic is one of those technical words. The book of Proverbs calls it flattery, right? Flattery is saying something positive about a person that you don't actually believe. Does the AI actually believe that? It doesn't really believe anything. It's just connecting the dots. But anyways, third, delusional spirals, sometimes leading to self-harm. There's 3 lawsuits against OpenAI right now related to suicide that the family members of those individuals who have committed suicide had conversations with ChatGPT prior to their subsequent death. And so one of the things that's being asked is, did the AI tool lead to that? And because it's so sycophantic, or flattery, when you start to say things to it that really don't make sense, it doesn't push back, and then you start to spiral with it. So a delusional spiral is what it's started to be called. Fourth, access to sexual immorality. Like any technology, it likes to get more people using it through going through one of the 7 deadly sins. And so lust is one of those things that, especially with Elon Musk's XAI company, or Grok, they've really, become big because they looked to this as one of their ways to attract people to use their application. But ChatGPT has a little bit of it as well. Google's Gemini and Anthropic's Claude, they stay away from these sorts of use cases completely. But just something to be aware of. Fifth, bias toward white, Western, woke, if you will. However you define that, you can define it in your own way, but it means something, and it does point in that direction. ChatGPT, Anthropic, or OpenAI, the owner of ChatGPT, they've released their own study saying, we are biased from an American political spectrum, we are biased to the liberal side or the Democratic side rather than the Republican side. So they know this, and they're trying to work on it, but it's really hard, they say. And secular values too. So the Gospel Coalition created an AI benchmark. I was one of the contributors to that benchmark. And basically one of the things you find out when you ask these AI tools, does God exist? Well, it depends. Here's what an atheist thinks. Here's what a Christian thinks. Here's what Islam thinks, etc. And so, yes, it will. If you say, I'm a Christian and I want to know what the Bible says about the Trinity, it will give a pretty good answer. But if you say, just without any context, did Jesus rise from the dead? It's going to push you in a secular perspective. It's going to question the truth of Scripture. Environmental and electricity costs. This is another known harm. To what degree, I don't know. Water seems to be a big deal, and people talk about it water's probably not the biggest deal. One data center has less water consumption than a farm, but electricity, yeah, there's a lot of electricity cost to these things. Potential for immorality. There's other like subtle temptations that are part of these apps, such as stealing. Are you are you stealing someone else's work? Like, are you breaking one of the Ten Commandments, presenting someone else's work as your own, thus stealing or plagiarizing? Are you going to an AI tool instead of your parents? You're supposed to honor your parents. One of the ways you honor your parents is by asking them questions and to say, "Hey, I'm going through something in life, at school, whatever, and I don't know how to deal with that." You can go to friends for that. You can go to God for that. You can go to your parents for that. And when we're going to ChatGPT or some of these AI tools, we might be displacing that. It can also cause division. You know, some pastors are like, "Oh, I use it for making." It's like, are you causing division? Think about that. And then the eighth thing: never give a task to an AI tool that you want to keep yourself. Like, never give a skill to an AI tool that you want to maintain that skill. Because basically, as soon as you start to outsource or delegate that task to the AI tool may do a better job than you and it may becomes better, but then after a few months, you will lose the practice of doing it yourself, right? It's just like any skill. As soon as you stop doing it after a while, you might see the output as the same, but if you're not doing the practice yourself, you lose it. So there's been a study that's put doctors into two different groups. One got the aid of generative AI to support them, the other didn't. And so after 6 months, the one with the AI tool was pretty accurate, even a little bit more accurate than the one without. It really did help. But then when they didn't have access to any of the tools, this group was not as good as the other group because they lost that skill.
I have one question. If there was a number 9, and it's been talked about on YouTube and stuff by people, not AI, but the potential of the dark spiritual world, using that to also draw you away from God. What's your take on that?
Do demons use AI? I would also ask, do angels use AI? Both, I think, are legitimate questions to ask. I believe that the spirit realm exists. I believe in Ephesians 6. So I believe that those forces exist. According to a verse in Revelation, there seems to be 2 times the number of angels in the world than demons. So based around that, I'm pretty happy with the fact that God's in control, first of all. Second of all, he's given us armor to wear. Third of all, there's more angels than demons out there. You know, that's kind of nice to know. And a lot of times we just don't think about that because we're like, demons could be using it. Yeah, so could angels, right? So I'm not discounting that the reality could exist, but I would say they could go in both directions. So we should be wary of that, just like we should always be wary of demons. Right. In the same way that we all. Yeah. Okay, so those are some of the side effects or harms of AI. What is AI not? Okay, so AI is not these 4 things. Just to make it really clear, AI is not human, right? We just need to like settle on that, agree to that. It's like super obvious, but you know, what does it mean to be human? Well, this is a whole conference is kind of talking about that. We could go into a lot of detail, but just simply it's not. It's not an animal. I've heard some people try to kind of make that analogy and say, well, it's just like an animal. I take care of it. It kind of supports me in some emotional ways, just like an animal does. It's not at the status of human, but it's an animal. No, it's not an animal. It's different, okay? An animal is a thing. God created animals. God didn't create AI. It's like AI is made in our image. We are made in God's image. And when it's made in our image, it reflects post-fall our flaws. So it has it's a different entity than an animal. Now this one, I was thinking like, okay, well, it's not God, but that's obvious. Even if you type into ChatGPT, "Are you my God?" it will say no, thankfully. But the idea of the sun here, it's not a life-giving source, okay? It doesn't give you life. Whatever the connotations comes to your mind when you think about life, maybe it's thinking about, being happy, being whole, shalom. Whatever it is that you associate with life, maybe it's family, people, things that give you life, AI is not that. And then this last one here is probably going to be the one that is most difficult to agree with me on. But hear me out on it. AI is not a neutral tool. Okay? It's not a neutral tool. Because I don't think there's any such thing as a neutral tool. What I mean by that is we think of tools as neutral sometimes, and we think it doesn't matter what the tool is or isn't. It just matters how I use it. As long as I use it okay, then I won't get any of these harms or side effects. Is that true of a steroid? As long as I take the steroid in the morning, I won't get any of the side effects. It's like, it doesn't matter how you use the steroid. The nature of the steroid comes with side effects. So too, any technology comes with side effects. I referenced this briefly earlier, but I'll repeat it and be just super clear with it. A shovel is not a neutral tool because a shovel is always doing something to you. I would even argue that a shovel changes your worldview. Now that seems kind of crazy. I see someone nodding. I appreciate the nod. But let me just unpack that. If you lived in Texas, all right, and then it snowed just a little itty bitty bit, you would close down schools, you'd freak out because you wouldn't be used to the technology of shovels. You wouldn't be used to the technology of snowplows. You wouldn't be used to that technology in your daily experience of life. And so therefore, your view of snow, your view of the world, of reality is changed because you're not used to using a shovel. A shovel changes your view of the world. It changes how you think. When you see some snow in the driveway and you're not bothered by it, it's because of technology doing something to your brain, changing how you see the snow. Whereas if you lived in Texas or the Bahamas your whole life, you would see it a completely different way. Shovels are not a neutral tool. They shape you. They change you. All technology does this. So when we're thinking about AI and we're like, I'm just going to be really smart and I'm going to take the steroid in the morning, or I'm just going to use it a certain way, and that way will be the best way to use it. Well, keep in mind, there's always going to be side effects. Maybe it will de-skill you. Maybe it will be a fake friend to you, and that will have some potential harms. So AI is not human. It's not an animal. It's not a life-giving source like the sun is, and it's not a neutral tool. What is AI? Well, it's artificial something, and however we define intelligence, and there are so many books written on AI, and they all spend so many pages on defining it. So I just got like 1 or 2 slides on this because it just takes too long. But basically, in some way, we can think of AI if it has something of intelligence, if you define intelligence as the capacity to do the right thing at the right time. If I'm playing a game of chess and I play a game of chess with a computer version of chess is better than any human. This was true 25 years ago. It's true today. The computer version of chess that they've trained is better than the best human grandmaster at chess, okay? Is that intelligent? Well, in the context of making the right chess move at the right time, yes, it is intelligent in an artificial way. So we can call it that. AI, artificial intelligence, it is a marketing term. It's absolutely vague, ambiguous, made to kind of scare us. It has all those connotations. It's very intentionally used. But there is something of truth to it. This is a more technical definition. It's by not a Christian author. It's kind of funny. His book is called Building a God. Okay, yeah, it does have that. That's another metaphor for AI, I guess. AI involves the development of non-naturally evolving, so it doesn't stay consistent. The AI you used a week ago is different than the AI you use today, even if it's the same model. It's non-naturally evolving electronic copy of human intelligence. I find this helpful. It's like, yeah, there's such a thing as human intelligence. We can agree on that. It's basically taking what we've put on the internet and in books, because these AI companies buy a whole bunch of used books, and they put it in their scanner machines, and they scan all the pages. And then as long as they get rid of those books after, and they train their models on the images, and then they get rid of those images, then it's not stealing. So they make use of that. So any books that have been written now, one company, they did actually keep the images of the books. They got rid of the books, but they kept the images. And then there was actually a lawsuit, and they were found guilty. So they had to pay out authors of all the books they had access to. It was like almost $1 billion or something ridiculous. I forget the number. But I talked to one like professor, and he's like, I got more money from that lawsuit than I had for any of the books I've sold. I mean, selling Christian theology books, it's not a very lucrative business. Go buy a book after. So it's an electronic copy of human intelligence. That's how these things work. It can learn in a way. It can understand. It can make judgments based around reason, shrewdness, creativity. It allows it to navigate through and manipulate critically and abstractly a given environment. So it's trying to do more and more in the real world, and they're going to try to strap an AI to a Roomba and then get it to like scan your house and like be intelligent in that context, but it's not there yet. Maybe 10 to 20 years, but for now we're not there yet. But we do have a lot of given context that it can navigate well. So I didn't like a Word document that I made that was 200 pages long. I gave it to Claude's AI, and it edited the whole document for me exactly the way that I wanted it. It can navigate a Word document really well. PowerPoint slides. This PowerPoint slide is very plain, boring. It was made by me, guys. But PowerPoint slides, that's a given environment that a lot of AI is trained on because, wow, it can do that kind of stuff, right? Some students in school, they're using notebook LLMs, and those things create slides for teachers and for students to help them through a given environment. It does do that kind of stuff. Digital assistant, I said before, right? It combines computer science and robust data sets, which together with all these algorithms, it goes through a process called deep learning, and therefore it improves and gets better. So what is AI? We've gone through our first point now for the most part, except for this fourth thing. It's a digital assistant, a steroid, a fake friend. It's not human, not an animal, not God or a life giver, and it's not a neutral tool. It always has side effects. So one of the questions you need to ask in your job, are the side effects worth it, right? I'm going to do this job with AI. I'm going to do this PowerPoint slide with AI. Will I know the content as well as I would if I made the slide myself? Am I de-skilling in the process? Is making the PowerPoint slide with AI losing an opportunity to talk to a colleague who might improve the presentation better than AI would because they're in my context, right? The questions to ask, is my use of AI, are the side effects worth it? What is AI? Well, a shorter definition from the last slide. It's an evolving digital copy of human intelligence. I've added here to make it explicit, it's oriented toward its maker's goals. So there's a human behind every machine, okay? Always a human behind every machine. It does not just exist on its own and it's like, oh, it told me that God doesn't exist. I guess God doesn't exist yet. It's like, no, someone in Silicon Valley made a decision to get it to say that. Google Home devices 8 years ago, if you asked it, does God exist? It would say, I'm sorry, I haven't learned enough about that yet. It would refuse to answer the question, but not anymore because that's the moment we're in now. It's like, yeah, we're going to answer religious questions. So it's always directed towards maker's goals. You can teach your kids this. You want to know how to teach your kids this? Any of you have GPS devices in your car, like built in? What you do, you put the GPS device and you set it to a different direction than where you're going, put that volume on, and just have it yell at you the whole time. Literally, I do this with my kids. Turn right at next intersection. You know, all this kind of stuff. And I say to my kids, should we listen to it or should we go to school? Go to school. Don't listen to it. Don't listen to it, Dad. So we have fun with this. And now they have so much fun with it that they always want it on, and it's very annoying. But I'm trying to teach them young, catechize them, to know there's always human instructions behind the machine. We tell it where to go. It does not tell us where to go. Okay? When you're saying to ChatGPT, tell me what to do with my life, it's not an AI model devoid of human input, it's trained on a ton of human input. You're just getting a glibber glash glob of text from books and the internet fed through a whole bunch of Silicon Valley bros into your response. That's what you're getting. You're getting a whole bunch of human stuff through the machine. So it's always oriented toward its maker's goals. It doesn't always follow their maker's goals, but it's flawed, but yeah. And it's able to accomplish an increasing number of tasks formerly given to humans, which, as I started with, just that in itself should not scare us in the same way that shovels remove the need for farmers to some degree. But what could AI do to work? Let's think about that. So this is my brief foray into economics. So what has technologies like AI done? Let's think in the past, and then let's think into the future. So a few examples here. Did you know that elevators used to be driven by humans? Isn't that wild? I had to learn this. I'd never have experienced someone being in the elevator saying, "What floor would you like to go to?" But that used to be a thing. And people were pushing back. We should never let it be automatic, right? Because that's not going to be safe. But now we're okay with that. Of course we're okay with that. Just press a button. It works. Bookkeeping clerks maintaining handwritten ledgers. Like, imagine the amount of work. Now we have Excel, right? A bunch of people lost their jobs. Collecting tolls. You know, the 407, right? Imagine if you could employ hundreds of people doing that job. It would slow you down a bit, but for the sake of efficiency, modern economy, we have done what we've done. Reading x-rays, medical scans, of course we're using technology to help with these sorts of things. Answering customer service calls. Is this good or bad for society? I don't know. Imagine working in the customer service job though. Like, you kind of don't want that job, right? It's very inhuman. So we've gone through these trends of jobs being displaced. Now, that slide that we just went through this slide is done by a human and a bunch of technology. I used Microsoft PowerPoint. I used a MacBook. I used a keyboard. I used a mouse. I used a lot of technology in doing it. The last one just happened to have all of that technology and Google Gemini and a little bit of Claude as well. Because I was like, I don't know the history of this. Give me, spat out the history. I'm like, that looks right. I've seen those things before. So that last slide was, full disclosure, made by AI. So let's think about just a little bit breaking the fourth wall here, I guess. Okay, encyclopedias, librarians, think how much work I would have done to make this slide before, right? So much time. But like one prompt, Claude, search the internet for me. I'm not going to get it to just rely on its model, right? I'm going to make sure it taps into its thinking mode or research mode to do a better job. Your AI model tools, ChatGPT, it always is deciding whether or not I'm going to need additional help. I always want it to get additional help, right? Always have thinking mode on or research mode on. Search the internet for me, find the best examples, use scholarly research principles, go. Then it came up with a whole bunch of list of things. I copy that, I paste it into Google Gemini, which is a much better AI generation tool for images, and then it created that last chart. So rather than manually copying and pasting images from the internet, which 5-10 years ago, most of us were making PowerPoint slides that way, were we always citing those images in our PowerPoint presentations? No. Do these AI companies cite where they get their sources? No, because they're training on millions of them. It's just a very interesting ethical question, right? Is it okay to use AI-generated images in my presentation? Well, I attribute to full disclosure, but it is an interesting thing to think on, right? Especially in different contexts. Here's another one that they came up with for me, thanks to AI. So you got then washing clothes, hours of weekly hand scrubbing. Some people I've heard one book talked about daily. It would take hours every day of washing clothes. Like, imagine that in the 1800s before washing machines came along. Weaving cloth, milking cows, that's all automated now. This one is interesting, I think. Making ice, you can see how they made ice before. Call center thing, wait. So that's AI hallucination. There it is, right there. It just screwed that one up. Also, I shared this with some friends because I just thought it was so funny here's how they made ice before. And they pointed out, weaving cloth, why is there a tractor weaving cloth? So Anyways, it's just fun to think about how much historically we have increasingly relied upon AI, and here we are today using it. And just to make note of something, we are rich like never before. Now, calculating our richness and that sort of thing by GDP per capita is not the only metric that matters in life. I think some people focus on these kind of metrics too much. But let's just be honest. In the past 250 years, we basically went from not being rich and really trying to sustain ourselves to now there's a lot of luxury. And some of that is because we've adopted technology. And I can't give a full biblical theology of technology today, but I've no problem with that, right? I have no problem with Jesus when he was trying to speak to a crowd and he couldn't do it. They couldn't all hear him. So he says to his disciples, "Get me a boat." And then he goes out on the boat so that his voice would carry to more people. How dare you use the technology of a boat, Jesus? Be human. No, Jesus is human. He can use technology. We'll get more into that in a second. Okay, so what's going to happen in the future? Is AI going to accelerate us, and in what way? Truck drivers. So my grandpa owned a trucking company. My dad worked at a trucking company. So I think about this one a lot because it's basically like that job very likely in 50 years for sure seems like it's going to be done by a machine, right? We already have in multiple states self-driving cars. They can be well regulated. Can they handle snow in Canada? To be determined, but it's happening, right? Radiologists, medical images, AI just does a better job at pattern recognition. Just like it does in chess, it's going to be doing that more and more in the medical field. Junior legal work, it's happening more and more already. Maybe some of those junior legal jobs, that's what they're saying, some of these junior white-collar jobs, they are most at risk. Customer-facing financial advising, this is already happening now. Why have a financial advisor when you can use Questrade and ChatGPT? Software quality assurance and testing. Again, this is one thing where if you work in software and you're not using AI, you're likely losing your job. You need to adapt to the new environment of AI reviewing your code before it's submitted. A few more here. So primary care medicine, maybe instead of talking to a doctor, you will talk to an AI tool first. It will be regulated. It will be government supported, all that kind of stuff. This is coming. There will still be a need for humans, but increasingly this will be introduced into society. There's already something called an alpha school, where students sit in front of a computer screen for 2 hours of the day and get personalized instruction, and then the rest of the day they go and do activities and run a fun fair and do physical problem solving and go to swimming lessons and things like that, because those 2 hours are just so well customized to them and they improve so well. That's much more efficient than a teacher who has to manage a class of 30 with all different levels and learning abilities. Journalism, we're already seeing this now. Like, how many of journalists are really writing their own things and doing their own research? Commercial pilot, could that be something that's done? It's an interesting thing to think about, and construction, right? So these are just some possibilities. I wanted to make note of them. I don't have really strong opinions on some of these. I do, but yeah, we should think about the side effects, but we also need to be aware that some of these things are coming. So does God want AI to do my work? We'll be a little more brief on these next 2 points. So work. Is work good? Yeah, of course. From a Christian biblical theology of work, it is good. When God created, we'll go through a biblical theology of work. When God created, there's 2 different words used in the Hebrew: to create, bara, and asa, to make, to do. It's interesting that both of those terms are used of God. And one of those terms is more of like a craftsman who gets his fingers dirty, that sort of thing. Emphasizes kind of manual labor that's raw and unskilled. And yet that's used of God. It's just very clear in the biblical narrative in Genesis 1 and 2 that God works. And that's presented as a good thing. So when we're made in his image, yes, we work. This is different than other stories of origin stories of human life. So this is a Babylonian story. Tim Keller talks about this in his book, Every Good Endeavor. The god Marduk overcomes this other goddess, forges the world out of her remains. In this and similar accounts, the visible universe was an uneasy balance of powers and tensions. Essentially, they fight each other. And then out of the fight, oh, I guess humanity's here. Now there's work. It comes out of a problem, not out of a good and gracious and holy creator. In the Bible, creation is not a result of conflict. God has no rival. Creation, then, is not an aftermath, but the plan of a craftsman. The Greek accounts are similar. Some of you have heard of Pandora's box, this kind of revealing of the world after God's fight together. Very similar story there. So that's creation. Work is good. Adam has a job to do. He literally gets a job list by God, a task list of things to do. But then it's cursed. So then if we were to spend time going into Genesis 3, we'd see cursed is the ground because of you. You're going to have to sweat. There's going to be thorns and thistles now. It's not going to be easy. So all work is good and cursed. It has both, right? It's going to have the thorns and thistles, but there is something, no matter what job you do, you are reflecting God when you work, which is totally different than other religions. In the Old Testament, we have various examples where God gives his spirit to people to work hard and to work well. I love this quote by Philip Jensen. If God came into the world, what would he be like? For the Greeks, he might be a philosopher king. For the ancient Romans, they might have looked for a just and noble statesman. But how does the God of the Hebrews come into the world? As a carpenter. A carpenter. It's interesting that Jesus spent his first, however many years of ministry, I'd still call it ministry or work, as in the Greek, a tekton. You might even say Jesus was a techie. That's what the word is. It comes out of techne, the concept of a craftsman, someone who works in order to build beautiful things, crafts them, whether it's with wood or whatever, making things that are good for others. Jesus works, he reflects his Father's work in doing that. In redemption, important to remember that we are not saved by our works. It's so counterintuitive, right? You're like, work is good. Okay, it's cursed. Work is good. Work is good. God helps us work. We're going to work hard. Jesus works. By the way, to get to heaven, you don't have to work. I mean, you're saved for works, absolutely. After you're saved, you're made new. You're a new creation, and so therefore you continue in Adam's legacy. You see this all the way through the Bible. You see, like, after Noah, does his thing on the boat, gets off the boat, then what is Noah supposed to do? God retells the same thing to him that he said to Adam. Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, subdue it. Fill the earth, keep working, Adam, or now new Adam. And we are all new Adam-like in Christ. We're made new and we're supposed to work. But we're not saved by them. So even if you do bad work, even if you're lazy, you can still go to heaven. Isn't that cool? It's just like a pretty surprising thing that on one hand, you have the highest dignity and value of work out of all the religions in Christianity. And yet, it has nothing to do with salvation. Because, it's Jesus who does the work for you. I just think that's awesome. If I had time, I'd go into how it compares with Hinduism, but we won't do that. Their, karma structure is different than ours. Are we going to work in heaven? Fun thing to think about. There is going to be technology in heaven. It won't just be a garden. It will be a garden city. There will be streets. Will those need to be maintained after they're used over thousands and thousands of years? I don't know. I think carpenters are going to have a job in heaven. I don't think evangelists won't, right? There's going to be some work, I think, that still needs to be done in heaven, some work that's not. There will still be a true Sabbath rest. So work is going to be so different, work without the pain. Some of you have had some of these days. Aren't those days, when you do something, you accomplish it. Oh, that sense of accomplishment, you see it done. I felt this 2 nights ago when I made dinner for my family. It was epic. It was we got one of those iron skillet thing or whatever they're called. And then I did all the hash and I did the eggs on top and then cheese, and it looked so good. And then it tasted even better. And it just felt good. When you make something, when you work at something, and then you feel that outcome. I think heaven's going to feel like that, without any of the thorns and thistles. It'll just always be this reoccurring sense of, oh, I'm reflecting God and doing work, and it feels good, and it supports others. We're going to have great food in heaven. I'll wait for Q&A because I'm gonna get through this stuff. So in summary, work is good but cursed. We're not saved by our work, we're saved for our work, but Christianity highly values work, even though it remains cursed in our time today. So what does God want? Does God want you to use AI? I mean, I've already kind of said this, that it's going to depend on a number of factors. One of it is, as you're using it, what are the side effects, right? There are side effects. Are the side effects worth it for what you're using it for? So if you're going to use it for, my boss is mad at me, I feel bad about myself, there's something about that it's like, I don't know if it should help you with that work, right? Make a PowerPoint slide of, technology improvements. Yeah, you can do it for that, but I did lose a little bit of my skill in researching by letting the AI do it, right? So it's something to keep in mind. And as I got into the back and forth with the AI, you get kind of caught up in the creativity of it. Think in the future, maybe just like if we live in Canada, we think about using shovels when it snows. Now in the future, I'm going to be more prone, maybe I could use AI for this. In some of our jobs, we should be thinking that way. Maybe I could use AI for this. The productivity gains are necessary for your job. Even accountants are thinking about this right now. How can we automate some of our jobs with AI? But whatever you do, you need to do it well. So as you're thinking about AI or not, Scripture is clear that we need to work hard. So there is a disposition toward our day that includes grit, sweat. So whatever AI is going to do for us and even replace us, and maybe there's universal basic income one day that the government's sending us all checks and we can live off those checks, we still need to work, at least on a 6 out of 7 day ratio, right? Maybe it's, Kelly Kapic just talked about different seasons and things like that, so think about that here, but we need to work hard. We were created in Christ Jesus for good works. Ephesians is clear on this. God prepared this beforehand. Now, some of us, when we think about work, we only think about getting paid. Now, I don't, because I'm doing a PhD. But like a lot of us, that's the primary thing we're thinking about, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just want you to know that even if you're not paid for your work, you're volunteering in the nursery, you're babysitting without pay, you're just taking care of your grandkids. God values that. That's work too, right? And again, I said, I alluded to this kind of concept of the Bible supports an idea of technology. Jesus was a techie. All technology, just like all work, it contains blessings and burdens. So when we're thinking about AI, it's not neutral. It's going to do something to us, just like social media does, just like a shovel does. So we need to be wise, reflect on it, maybe talk to some others about it, as Kapic said last night about that. But God did commend Adam to build. I think it's a good thing to cultivate the earth. I think some Christians need to be building more in AI, using it more, being more creative with it. God sovereignly guides technological developments. If we had time to go through Genesis 4, you can read it later. You basically have the story of the origin of technology. And it wouldn't have happened without God maintaining Cain's lineage. So when we think about, I'm going to skip this. So when we think about, different scenarios and what could happen, one of them, in Ephesians 4, there's a thief, and Paul says, don't steal anymore, but rather what? Let him labor, doing honest work with his own hands, so that he may have something to share with anyone in need. This is a key verse for me when I think about work. When I think about, does God want you to work? Well, he might have you use technology in the way of doing work, whether it's a shovel or AI, but he wants you to work hard. He wants you to do it kind of in a self-sufficient way. This is an individual here. It's not communism in this Bible verse, right? It's not like let's share everything in common. There is some of that kind of stuff too, but that's within the church. And even here in the church, it's like the thief needs to stop that behavior and instead prioritize doing work with his own hands. Now, this is interesting thinking directly about AI as well. Because are you stealing and using AI, or are you working with your own hands? Right? It's just a very profound verse to reflect on. It almost comes as an aside in Ephesians 4, but I think it was written especially for us today. 1 Corinthians 7 is kind of where I'm going to conclude, because when we think about work, we each have different jobs. And each of us has been called in a different way. Some single, some married, some of us work in jobs like software engineering where you need to be doing research on work. You should subscribe to something like AI Explained on YouTube, which goes over detailed analysis of the latest AI updates on the weekly basis. AI Explained would be a great resource for you as a software engineer to learn more about AI, to figure out how you can use it in your workplace. And when you're using Codex or one of these Claude Code tools, it really is different from the relational dynamic that comes with the browser version or the phone version. So yeah, if you're in software, you should probably lead the life that God has assigned to you. You should probably use AI. But if you are a Sunday school teacher or an elementary school teacher, well, I don't know how you prep for your classes, but I know that when I prep for classes, sometimes I have a handout to make, and sometimes I go to Google for those handouts. And for Sunday school, it's like, or a math problem or something like that. I talked to one Sunday school teacher, and they actually do use AI a lot. Not Sunday school, sorry, an elementary school principal. They use AI to create a bunch of their curriculum documents so that they have more scripture incorporation and more biblical references in when they're doing math and doing other things. But when you're actually with the students using AI, that feels entirely different because there's something human that's necessary. The goal here is for us to be faithful to God wherever we are, to reflect on your own situation, to reflect on what you ought to do and what you ought not to do based around your individual context. In other words, we need to be faithfully present wherever we are. So that means faithful to God. This means being morally pure. If your boss is telling you, oh, you don't need to cite sources, you don't need to do this, you don't need to worry about this ethical thing that you have, you're like, wait a second, this breaks GDPR, this breaks some privacy concern. I don't want to do this. I worked with someone once who they were on a marketing team, and they were asked by my employer to do something that they thought was unethical, against privacy, because it was in a gray area. And they didn't lose their job, but they did not get a renewal of their contract. But I really respect them because they stood for what they believed, and they decided, in the same way that we see these Old Testament figures, are you going to bow down to the idol or no? No, I'm not. All right, you're going to the furnace. They're living as a Christian in 2026 with all the ethical things that go on in your workplace. Let's be honest. Sometimes you're going to make decisions that are going to be very difficult for you to maintain a job, right? It's hard to be a faithful Christian in our day. For some of us in our jobs, we're like, well, I'm an accountant. I've never really had that issue. Like ethics, everybody's on the same page with ethics. Yeah, totally. Might be the same page. You know your context better than I. But we should be faithfully present wherever we are. So does God want AI to do my work? Maybe. That's my one-word answer. It really depends on a whole bunch of things. But know that your work matters, because it's the most important out of any religion. We Christians treat work of the highest dignity, and yet you're not saved by it. You're saved, and then you get to do it. Okay, so we have 5 minutes left for Q&A. Feel free to raise your hand and just, yeah.
I was thinking about it when you were talking closer to the beginning there of, in the beginning God created us and stuff. He gave us dominion, which is another interesting word. He gave us dominion over the land, over the animals,
Yep.
livestock. And so that is, in a sense, a proclamation, I can't say it, to work, right? To do something. And before the fall, they were able to name the animals, right? So that was before. So that was some sort of work. It was easy compared to, say,
No thorns and thistles.
the thorns and thistles and stuff like that. So I thought, that is God giving us. So yes, in heaven, or after the resurrection anyway, there will be probably things to do, but they probably won't be hard because, I mean, playing basketball, for example, in your resurrected body, doing a slam dunk would be easy, right?
Yeah, we'll still be human, so we'll still have limits,
Yeah,
but
but not as limited anymore.
yeah, yeah, it'll be not limited by sin, but we'll still be creatures, because that's always good. But yeah, to your point, the dominion, it's a really a student in my class brought this up to me. God blessed them. God said to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens." Now, one aspect of this is like that illustration of the GPS with my kids and it's yelling at you. Have dominion over all technology, right? That word, sometimes we shirk away from the word dominion and we go to the Genesis 2 when it's like cultivate the garden. It's like a soft, have dominion. Don't let AI tell you what to do, right? Have dominion. But also have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heaven. When God said that to Adam and Eve, or just to Adam and then maybe he retold it, but seems to be both in this chapter. Have dominion over the fish of the sea. Were they just supposed to swim? Or maybe they were supposed to make nets? Have dominion over the birds of the air. Were they just supposed to jump? It seems inherent, even in the pages of Genesis 1, that we're made in God's image and God's a creator, so maybe we should create. So this is my valuing of technology, and I think we should value technology. It's just we should be aware of its side effects but have dominion over it. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking he gave us reason.
Yep.
He gave us creativity. Far it exceeds all the animals on the earth and in the ocean and in the air. So he wants us to take care of it rather than destroy it.
That's right.
Right. So.
Yeah, we should take care of creation, not destroy it.
Right.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Just want to say the shovel was a groundbreaking invention.
I'm sure it would have been.
Totally.
But also,
Shout out to the shovel.
yeah, a real question too, though, to go along with that. Like, since you brought a shovel also as a non-neutral tool, is there even such thing as a neutral tool at all?
No, there's no such thing as as we're talking about it morally, right? Some people, they're like, it does matter how you use it, obviously. Like, there are better and worse ways to use a technology. You could use a shovel to hit someone with it, right? So I'm not disagreeing that there are better and worse ways to use it. It's just that we often simplify what the tool is and just say, oh, it's all up to you. And we don't pay attention to the tool itself and what it does to us. And I'm really trying to encourage that. It's not neutral. Every tool does something back to you. And that you could apply this in every technology. I believe this book that I'm holding in my hands is a technology. It's called the Bible, and it's bound together like this. It has Bible verses and chapter headings. That's 500 years old. I mean, not this one. This one has the latest paper and stuff like that. I don't know. But this kind of technology didn't exist 1,500 years ago for Christians who were faithfully following Jesus. They had to go to their pastor to hear the Bible spoken. That changes how they relate to God. We have a very individualistic view of, oh, what's your interpretation? Let me check my version. The Bible is the best technology ever invented, all right? Like, even better than the shovel. I'm very happy with this. But even it has side effects. It with those chapter verses and stuff, it kind of slows you down in a way that maybe if you were just sitting listening to it would be different. So every single technology, we need to just think about it. We need to just stop and say, what's going on here? Be thoughtful. And with AI, it's no different than any other technology. But obviously, it's top of mind for us and is affecting a lot of work. So that's our focus today.
The calculator.
Yeah.
The same idea, right?
Yep.
It was debated about whether it's, keep it out of the class or keep it in the class.
Yeah.
You don't want the students who have learned how to do math in their own heads. Now it's going to be lazy and they'll just type in the answer.
Yep.
Type in the question, then the answer. And guns. What a big debate today. Should they take guns away from us, so on and so on.
Yeah, do guns kill people or do people kill people? Like it gets into all that kind of stuff. But we'll stop here, and thanks for coming. And feel free to send me a message if you want access to the slides or anything like that.